Hey, everybody. Welcome back to More Than Anxiety. I'm super excited to have you here today because I'm going to talk about sports. And if you're a woman and you're like, why though? Why does everything have to relate to sports? It's a really weird thing for me to be recording this podcast, but I've had a lot of sports in my life lately. And I got to be honest, I'm really excited about it. It's been a super fun few weeks for me. So I wanted to share that with you, but not from a let's talk about the sports and the games standpoint, but about what you can learn from coaches and from athletes. And maybe your past, maybe you were in like youth soccer or something like that, about resilience and boundaries and just how to win at life in general. So if we've not met before, my name is Megan. I'm a coach. I work with successful, ambitious women, but I may not have told you this. I'm also a swim coach. So I get to do a little bit of surf and turf coaching, which has been really super fun for me lately because it's the middle of swim season, but also football season, which is coming quickly to an end. So I'm going to talk a little bit about those two sports because they're my favorites, but I'm always going to tie it back to how you can apply this to your own life, the lessons you can learn, and some actionable steps that you can take to help you be more resilient, to be more calm and confident, and have a lot more success with a lot less stress. So can we just take a minute and start by talking about Fernando Mendoza? Because I'm from Indiana and Lord, this guy is adorable. I mean, my friends and I keep talking about like he's the sweetest thing. I told my daughter who's way younger than him, I'm like, that's the kind of dude that you're looking for. He's amazing. And he has captivated the entire state of Indiana and the internet with his contagious personality and positivity. And while I am not Kurt Signetti by any means, if you don't know, that's the IU football coach, or Bob Bowman, who is Michael Phelps's coach for swim or former coach, I am a surf and turf coach. What I mean is that I have the privilege of coaching successful women, but also really successful kids. And the things that I do with my kids at the pool are very similar to the things that I coach the women or men that I work with on things like setting boundaries or managing their nervous system. It's really about finding success without extra stress. You might not think that there's a lot of overlap there, but I promise you there is, and that we're going to talk about all of that here in just a few minutes. So what you'll learn inside this episode is how the resilience, perseverance, discipline, and the boundaries that my student athletes and that you might have learned as a kid set you up for success. Never, ever did I think that I would be telling you guys this stuff, but here I am. I like to leave this stuff to like real sports guys, like the Kelsey brothers, but let's go ahead and get to it and talk about sports, mindset, resilience, and strategic boundaries that win championships and how they're exact same tools that you need to win at your life or your career, especially right now. So here we are at the beginning of February, and I wonder how it's going with those resolutions that you set like 4 weeks ago. A lot of people are talking about things like, yeah, I mean, I started, but it got really hard and it was just so confusing and I didn't feel like I could do it. So what happens is a lot of times when we're in that place where we've set these goals or resolutions or the word of the year, whatever it is that you did, we get to this place in time. And usually that second week of February is the week where everybody just like jumps ship and says, forget it. What happens is we start feeling all that familiar but really uncomfortable feeling of having to hustle and grind. Because even though you wanted some sustainable success, it might feel really uncomfortable to keep changing how you're doing things. I know in my life, slowing down has been a really difficult thing. I'm actually on year number 2 of practicing the word being intentional. I have come so far. I am slowing down. I am enjoying my life. I am finding more success than ever, which is why I'm teaching other women to do the same thing. But you might be noticing that slowing down, even though it might be exactly what you want, feels really uncomfortable. So when I'm coaching my swimmers or my clients, I ask them almost every single day or week, hey, how do you feel? And my hope is that they're going to say something like really weird or it just feels wrong, because when you change how you're doing something, especially if it's a New Year's resolution or a habit that you've had for a really long time, or even if you're changing what you believe, it should feel weird or wrong or different, whatever. If it doesn't, you didn't really change anything. And what we know is that old habits die screaming. You have to keep changing until the screaming stops. And then that new stuff starts to feel normal. And then finally it feels doable and then maybe good. And if you've looked back over the last year and decided that it wasn't really all that bad, or that what you want isn't really that possible, it's just, ew, you know what? I don't know what I even thought trying to change that. That is just your brain trying to keep you from changing and going back to its old habits because it feels better, even when you don't really want it. So while I'm going to be talking about sports a lot, there are a lot of other women talking about Valentine's Day because that's also coming right up. And that was a quick switch, wasn't it? This episode is kind of about that too, because this is about loving yourself. And in fact, it's about the most important relationship that you're going to have, and it's the one you have with yourself. And yes, I did just tie love and sports into your mental and emotional health because that's what I do when I coach people. I talk about the things that we love. So if I'm coaching somebody and they don't want to talk swimming, you've got me. I'll talk it all day long. You want to talk about football? I can talk about it a little bit. If you want to talk about how you are completely into theater, let's talk about it. If you want to talk about how much you love your sourdough starter and how you just want to do that all day long, let's pull that in because what you love and what's important to you is going to determine the goals you set. And we want to make sure that the things that you love are part of your life. So if you're like me and you love a sport, the athletes and the teams that you're cheering for, and you want to feel incredible and successful, you have to love yourself as much as you love those other things. If you're not a sports person, I want you to relate this to something that you do love. And maybe the lessons that you learned in the process of doing theater or being in show choir or being in speech and debate, whatever it was. In this episode, let's start by talking about your mindset and mentality. Yeah, here I go again. Are you ready? Let's talk about what that championship mentality is really like because it's really about ambition and getting what you want. And that's why people come to coaches, isn't it? You have a goal, you've got some drive, and you know what you want. But there's a lot going on in there because ambition can be really big. But if you don't have a strategy and not just the feeling of, ooh, that would be really cool, it's going to be rough. The difference between wanting to win and actually preparing to win is the important thing. And it starts with what you're thinking about and the habits that you create. So if we talk about ambitious, I think that this word can trip some people up. They might think people who are already successful or people who are willing to do anything they have to do to get what they want. And that may or may not be true. My hope is that you would be guided by your morals and ethics. But ambition is really just defined as having or showing a strong desire and determination to succeed. So let's go back again and talk about Kurt Signetti. Kurt Signetti has this quote. You might think it sounds arrogant. I think it sounds amazing. They interviewed him and he said, I win. Google me. And if you've not checked out the Google lately, if you're listening to this not so long after the National Football Championships that were last week, Google played into this and they just wrote, yep, he won. They Google changed their search page to coincide with the quote that he had. He said, I win, Google me. And that's not arrogant. It actually works. I decided to pull my own little Signetti test during our conference swim meet that we had the other weekend. And what I did was I did the pre-meet talk with my swimmers. And I said, okay, guys, I want to talk to you about how this meet's going to go. Because we're seated pretty well. And I want you to decide right now that it's over and we won. Just tell yourself that. I want you to decide you won. And guess what? The girls' team went out there and they were like, we did it, we won. And our boys' team went in and cut incredible amounts of time. So much so that before the races, I would say, okay, before you get in, what are you aiming for? Like, what time do you want? And over and over and over again during that meet, they would tell me a time that was 3 seconds, 5 seconds faster than they'd ever gone before, and they would nail it. And it was a decision to focus on winning instead of the fear of losing or what they were afraid of. It was really that proactive mindset. We've worked so much on that with my swimmers this year, but also with the people that I'm life coaching, asking them, what is it that you want? What do you really want to believe about your ability to achieve this? And then digging into their head so that they have to tell me those limiting beliefs to say, let's find some evidence that those limiting beliefs are just thoughts that we can work through and start to change by focusing on what it is that you want instead of what you don't. Remember, this isn't about if you'll have an obstacle in your way or if something is going to be difficult, because 100% it will be difficult and something will pop up that will get in your way. For my swimmers, they might false start. For my life coaching clients, they might do a project at work and it might not get the reception that they would hope that it was getting. But it's not about not having obstacles. It's about how you respond to those obstacles. It's about stopping that hoping for something and really starting to plan on how you're going to go after it and know what it takes for you to get it. So can you apply this to your life right now? Let's start by figuring out, what is your win for this quarter? What do you really want? Because We're still at the beginning of Q1. I know I was talking about Q4 not very long ago, but as soon as that calendar changed in January, we went into Q1. We're still at the beginning. So, what's your win? What are you actually working for? If you're like me and you're working to have more success and less stress, if you want intentional living, if you're going back to analog, if you're like, you know what, I'm going to go back to face with people. If that's what you want, me too. But you have to have a plan. You can't just say, I'm going to keep doing the things I did last year and hope those things fall into place. What work are you doing? Is it just busy work, or are you actually creating high impact actions that are getting you there? Do you have a game plan? And that game plan approach is really what's going to help you get over that vague wish feeling and be able to do the things that you want to do. So now let's talk about resilience and whatever happens next, that next play mindset. When we talk about resilience, we have to talk about the power of losing, because failure is feedback. Sports teach us how to lose. They teach us how to get back up. They teach us how to refocus and move forward. If we watch any kind of sport, or if you are involved in any kind of activity that is a challenge or a competition, somebody's going to lose in business, in life, in your personal life, or anything that's happening. At some point, you're not going to get what you want. You will lose. And that's okay. We want to take losing from being something that's devastating and an end point to something that is a data point. And this is a process that you can start today by stealing my habit. I'm going to tell you what it is right now. It's so simple. I do it every single night before bed. It helps me take an evaluation of the day and to move forward the next day. Every night before I go to bed, I grab a calendar or my little notebook and I write down what worked for the day, maybe 3 things, 5 things, what didn't work, and what would I do differently every single day? So I can say, oh, yeah, this didn't work, but these things did. This is where I'm headed tomorrow. And this is something that you can put into practice right now that will change the way you think about your life, your mistakes, and what you're capable of. So let's go back to that example of Indiana football. They had a lot of challenges. So if you watched that game, that national championships game, it was Indiana and Miami. There were some mistakes. There were some really bad calls. There was unnecessary roughness. There was a time when I was like, oh boy, this ship is going down and we're going to lose this game. It was intense at the end. And IU and Miami at any point during that game could have decided that they were done. They could have said, you know what? This is crazy. Like, there's no way we can pull this together. But they didn't, because they knew they had to focus on the next play. And they had to have short-term memory. And this is something too, and I know that, geez, oh Pete, this went a lot deeper into sports than I intended it to, but I love Ted Lasso. It's my favorite show on TV. I know very little about soccer that I didn't learn from Ted Lasso, which still is not anything. I do know enough about sports and do have a love for sports that that show is it for me. Plus, it's life coaching and sport coaching together. It's like the dream show, right? If you've not watched it, you should. But in the words of Ted Lasso in this, he tells one of his players, Sam, be a goldfish. And you might say, I don't even know what that means. Well, the whole story of that was Sam had a rough game and some things happened. And so Ted Lasso tells him, you know what? What animal has the shortest memory? Sam says, I don't know. And Ted goes, a goldfish. Sam, be a goldfish. So if you are swirling around in everything that you don't want or mistakes that you made, it's going to be really difficult to see what you do want and to move past it. So when you're thinking about how to move from, gosh, I just tried to launch this new thing in my business and it totally bombed, or I tried to give this presentation and it was not received well. Or if you're an athlete and you're playing a sport and you're like, I don't know, every time I try, I mess up. You have to let that go. And we have to start looking at what we want. We have to stop wallowing in the things that we don't want or repeating the habits that are leading us to burnout and strategically analyze that loss so that you can have a better strategy for next time. This is really about discipline and burnout and moving forward without overworking. And it's kind of the strategic art of saying no, isn't it? No is uncomfortable. But when we talk about boundaries and the boundaries that you set, whether you're in a sport in order to get you to win the game or win the tournament, and the boundaries that you set in your life, they go hand in hand. Champions protect their energy and focus with non-negotiable boundaries. And you can too. Let's go back from football to swimming for a minute. I want to tell you how much discipline these swimmers that I've coached have had this year. They're showing up, even though the practices are hard, even on days when I have to cancel practice because of the weather. Again, remember, I live in Indiana and I'm recording this the day after the snowstorm. They're going in on their own. They have discipline. They know that there are non negotiables during their day. They have to rest. They have to go to bed early when they'd rather go do something else. They have to eat food that they may not want to eat and drink water instead of soda, or just really take time to take care of themselves. So when we talk about the discipline that it takes to be in a sport, and we talk about the discipline it takes, whether your goal is to lose 10 pounds or to launch your new business, it's about doing the things even when they're hard, even when you're not feeling it, even when you want to give up because you have a bigger plan and a goal in mind. And that's more important than your short-term gratification. It's about planning rest and recovery days so that you can be stronger and working hard when you need to. I always wonder how many people hear me talk about pulling back or slow living and think that I'm crazy or that I'm giving up. Because we're programmed to go hard or go home. And there's a time and a place for that. But it's not 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Not at all. This is really about self-love. This is when I talked about the whole be your own Valentine thing. This is the self-love portion. And discipline is self-love. You have to be disciplined in your boundaries. You have to say no and mean no. You have to say, you know what, I'm not going to do this thing that I really want to do because I want this other outcome. And that's a hard thing, but it's a great lesson to learn through sports. So if you're looking back over your life and you're like, did I learn resilience in a sport or in show choir or in speech and debate or whatever else you were involved in? Have I learned resilience from trying to bake sourdough bread over and over again? Probably. And what did you learn from your failures? How many times did you misstep if you were a dancer? How many times did you have to practice over and over again to get the routine down? How many times did you have to do things that you didn't feel like doing and put aside the things that didn't work and learn from them? How many times did you have to say yes to yourself instead of what everybody else was asking for you? Because when we talk about self-love, it's about loving yourself and respecting yourself enough to do the hard things. It's about protecting your success, protecting your goals and your energy and your wins. And sometimes it's about slowing down, even when it's hard, but you know it's exactly what you need to create the win that you want. So as an athlete, as well as a woman on a mission, you have to say no to anything that distracts you from your focus. So if we talk about setting boundaries with toxic people when I'm coaching someone, or communication boundaries, or really figuring out the people who are going to move you up the next level, creating that team that you want, and getting rid of the distractions, that's all part of the game plan. So what do? You have to practice communicating your boundaries without guilt. And that's something you can learn when we do a boundaries and balance audit. What non-negotiables are you currently giving up? What energy are you giving away to someone else? Where are you bending over backwards for something that doesn't align with your values? And where can you start saying yes and no to the things that are important to you? So if we talk about what we learned in this episode, we talked about a championship mindset, which is really about having ambition to go after what you want, about that next play resilience, about how to lose and how to learn and how to move forwards, and then setting strategic boundaries so that you can start winning in a more holistic, life-wide way, life-rounded way. So what are you going to do next? How are you going to do this? Absolutely grab your journal and start doing that really simple evaluation that I told you about. What worked? What didn't work? What will I do differently tomorrow? That's a simple thing. You can go with it right now. I would do it every single day and start taking that action. If you write down tomorrow, I will do this thing, do it. Follow through on yourself. Love yourself enough to follow through. And if you feel like you need more than that, that's okay. Let's do a boundaries and balance audit. It's a 45-minute conversation over the phone. It is the playbook. This phone call is going to help you get a 10,000-foot view of your life and find out what's going well, what needs attention, and you're going to have a simple step forward to create more balance and boundaries in your work and in your personal life. What else can you do? You can also join me in the Success Without Stress workshop. It's about building resilience, kind of like an athlete. And I host this live workshop every second Wednesday at 1:00 p.m. Eastern Time. You can find the link to register in the description. It is live, it is interactive, and I'm going to walk you through the steps to be able to have more success and a lot less stress. And before you go, I hope that you'll take time to comment, to subscribe, and click the little bell so that you always stay in the know and up to date on what's happening next. So for now, take care, and I'll be back again soon. Thanks for watching.